Good evening. Welcome to the program. This is What's Your Story. I am Catherine Mwangi. My guest tonight is no stranger in this land and in the region. She has decades, well, maybe a decade and a half, or maybe 2 decades of experience in television, radio, digital broadcast, and now venturing into film. Kalekye Mumo, we used to hear her voice. She tells me today, 7 years ago. It doesn't feel like 7 years ago. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
You look radiant.
Asante sana.
Yeah?
Yeah, it actually is
7
years ago.
It feels like the other day.
2016. I left 2016, July 1st.
Tell me what you said before the show.
Independence Day, independence, 40 years. And yeah, it's amazing though that 7 years on, people talk to me as if I just left the studio now.
Yeah.
Some still think I'm there and I'm going, hey, I'm not sure you've listened recently, but yeah, it happens.
So was it a goal you had that when you turn 40, then you're leaving?
I don't think pretty much I'd say a goal. I'd say the body, the system, everything just was speaking.
Okay.
And it had been the same thing for so long. I was there for 10 years.
Right.
And it was more like, okay, you know what, you need to move on to something else, move on. So I'd had a tug of war in myself with God as well. We had been having this negotiation. And then finally he said, hey, yeah, you've spoken for too long. I think it's time. Oh. And yeah, it was time to go, and we agreed to disagree and left. Okay,
you agreed to disagree with God?
No, we agreed to disagree with my employers.
Your employers.
My contract was ending, time to renew, and everything was just not aligning to what would have kept me longer than I was supposed to have been there, because again, I did want to leave because I was tired. And so that's it, yeah.
How long were you there for?
10 years. 10 years. 2006 to 2016.
We all remember you here, as you've heard before we started taping, with Shafi, such a great duo in the mornings. And
in the afternoons first, and then in the mornings.
You started in the afternoon.
Yes, our biggest show was the afternoon. I think the morning show, we didn't stick around long enough. We did 8 years on the rush hour, and that's where everything was actually birthed in terms of the chemistry, the conversations, and how we would handle relationship topics. That's where it grew. Yeah. And in those 8 years, it was like, we were yin and yang, but it didn't always start that way.
Oh, no?
It didn't start that way.
Oh.
It didn't start that way.
It felt like you'd known each other forever.
Yeah, we were doing our jobs right. That's what I tell guys. We were doing our jobs right. We took on the personas that we're supposed to take. Radio has personas, which is something that a lot of people don't know or have no clue about.
Hold on. I would think that who you are is who you bring.
No? No.
Teach me.
Listen, radio is theater.
Oh.
And a good radio station will give you the DNA of the station. Now, I joined when I was just about to turn 30. I was 29. And the station was 18 to 24. I had to sound like an 18 to 24-year-old, so I was not being me. I also had a directive of who I'm representing in that 18 to 24. Women, which women, what do they like, what are they aspiring to? Everything about that. Same thing for Shafi.
No.
He was to be the Kenyan bad boy. You bring a little of yourself, but essentially, that's not really who you are. So we sold it so well. I was the Kenyan single young woman. People couldn't tell for a long time my age until I shared it.
Right.
Because I was hanging out with people who were in their 20s, so I understand what are they talking about, what do they do, and why do they talk like this, what's important to them. That's the job.
So it's like acting.
It is acting. If you're a good actor, if you've done acting before, it helps. I have a dream to make this a career. I've already gone through fighting with my parents getting into this world of media, which is like to that generation. Yeah. That's not a career. Yeah. You can't make a career out of that. So I'm here in that borderline place where I have to prove myself. I already went to Capital, and in 3 months I was out moving. So they're like,
10 great years. Of course, you proved yourself, and you proved your parents wrong, I hope.
Absolutely, because they now transitioned into introducing me as, have you met Kalekye Mumo? And I'm like, but you are Mrs. Mumo. Are you? Have you met her? She's the one of Kiss. I mean, it was such a funny transition. Yeah. Having walked from she doesn't have a job. She not find her job.
True.
That time you've left your office, you've come from work to this. I'm like, wow. Yeah, so yeah.
So it wasn't just Kalekye, we know, it's the
No,
name.
they would introduce me by the name, and then I'd feel so awkward because I'm like, you can't introduce me like that when I'm your child. But I mean, that's just
They were proud of
they
you.
were proud and they were happy to. So yeah.
So when you left, did you know where you were moving to?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I mean, what I knew was that I wasn't going to do that anymore.
Got it.
My love for radio hadn't died. I just was, I think, exhausted of being in the same place, doing the same thing. And I knew that I wanted to transition to TV.
Right.
I had done TV prior while I was on radio.
Yes.
I had done the show, Couples Show.
Yes.
And I loved it. And I now wanted to transition and bring the essence of a good talk show onto TV.
Right.
So it was a thought. I hadn't shared it.
Yeah.
And I also knew that I'm good at doing planning for events and creative concepts and things like that. So I had been doing that, and I proved that I could do it on my own when I did my 40th birthday, the all-white birthday.
Party, yeah.
And after planning that, everyone's like, you did all this by yourself. So you can come up with concepts you can do. And so I was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to do that.
Okay.
So that was like the first thing. I'm like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I had just landed Kerichi Gold as a client, and so I went to do that. And about, 6 months, almost 5 months later, was when, the TV stations came calling, K24 came calling and said, look, we have a show. We don't know if you have time, because I'd made it clear I'm going to be doing other things.
Right.
Do you think you can do this? And I was like, how much time is it taking out of my life? Essentially a day, half a day for prep, half a day to shoot.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's go. And so there was a chance immediately provided. I think God has been really gracious to me because the things that I have asked for and prayed for, believing, He has given me.
He's granted them to you.
Yeah.
So you have your own company now, KM Network.
Yes.
So I'm assuming KM is your name, Kalekye Mumo.
It is I. It is me.
Right. And what I read, when I read your bio, it says you want to change or transform lives one story at a time.
Correct.
Tell me about that vision.
So that vision is really about, the same way the show here, What's Your Story? It's really about different stories of people's lives and different angles of it, right? I'm big on relationships, and being that the author of relationships is God, that's where I draw my content of what is a good relationship from. And these relationships are boy-girl relationships, they're mom-daughter relationships, your relationship with money, your relationship with food, it could be anything. So when I began seriously now creating content, I began with Live and Uncut, which was an angle of interviews, just sat down with different restaurants, having conversations with people. And it could span from what their life is about, but it could also be topical. And so those are the mix of things that I've been doing. So for me, changing lives starts with people sharing their stories and being intimate enough to open themselves up and share their story. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And KM Network itself transitions into producing stories and filming for different people.
Awesome.
If your company wants to tell their story, we come and craft how we would do it, help you script it. We come and we film it, and you have your package of what you want to do. And so that's exactly how I do it. So I work in terms of being a consultant, and I get a crew as and when I need them. That's what COVID has taught us. That it may not very well be that, because I see a lot of people, oh, give me a job at your company, give me not like that.
No.
It doesn't work like that. I work with professionals as at when I need them for whatever job is going to be done. But in terms of as a brand, Kalekye Mumo, creating content, creating stories, that I continue to do. And more recently, I broadened into creating conversations with Kalekye. And conversations with Kalekye is exactly that we will sit down, I'll invite you, there's a topic, we talk about it, something that you feel you would love to, break down and that it could help people, and we talk about that. So I started off with the biggest elephant in the room,
which is
my love life. Everybody who has a say in my love life. And you know why?
Because
I did my job well. I sold the Kenyan single lady so well that everybody and their cousin thinks I've never dated in my life.
By the way, yeah, there's that person. Where does it come from?
Because I did my radio job well. The radio persona that was created for Kalekye Mumo on air was to be that single Kenyan girl, independent, always got her things checked right. She's
Yes.
careful, she saves,
Yeah.
and she is not about to take nonsense from men.
From any man.
And she takes good care of her fellow sisters. And so everybody who called in, all the girls who called in, I had their back, whether or not I believed in what they were saying. Because some of them just needed a slap in the face. And I say that with compassion because sometimes you need to be slapped to wake up, sis. You need it. So that was the character. And it's interesting because think about some of the film characters you've watched.
Right.
There's some people you just naturally hate.
Yeah.
And even if you met them on the street, you'd be spewing anger like this person. And even if you don't remember where you know them from, you're just angry.
Right.
Because they did their job well. So I believe that I am, how do I put this nicely? I am always being brandished as single. You should not have an opinion on relationships. You should never comment or should never say anything because you've never dated.
Yeah.
I just did my job well, guys.
Actually, you're trolled a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, so like, why are you not married? There's all of that. And I'm like, my goodness, a girl can't live her life.
Also, I could be married and you don't know.
And you don't
because
know.
I don't want you to know. So then, what do we do? Okay, but I'm not yet. Just in case he's out there and he's watching, honey. So
how did Conversations with Kalekye start? And when?
So Conversations with Kalekye, we did the first episode or first recording in December. Now, this is something I had wanted to do, to hold a live experience, get to engage with my audience, specifically with KM Radio, which we haven't talked about, but we shall.
Yes, we will.
Which is a facet on Instagram, and just get to be close, intimate, not a big audience, and just have an honest conversation. So I told God about this a while ago. And then I started dilly-dallying because I made excuses, as everybody does. Oh, I don't know if this is the right time. I don't know if the money's right. I don't know which cruise, all these things. And because God is God, who I believe in and love, he put it in somebody else's mind that they shall come and ask me what I'm doing with the brand KM Radio and when am I going to connect with my audience. And this guy came and asked, the exact same things I've been telling God. And I'm like, I know I've never told anyone this thing. So how do you know? It can only be God.
Right.
And so I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust and we're going to go with this. And I didn't even have a name at the time of what I'm going to call it. I hadn't come up with the name of what I'm going to call the brand.
Right.
I hadn't come up with it. But the more I thought about it, I was like, just keep it simple. You want to have conversations with who? With me.
Plain does it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And so then the next question became, so what are you going to do in your first show? And I said, you know what? The biggest thing to demystify is my love story. And also to bring to attention the greatest love that I have ever had. And you'll have to watch the rest of the show to get to know what that's about. We've just come up and done, the show had 2 parts in the live format, but then we've cut that up into 8 episodes. So yeah, you'd have to get onto Conversations with Kalekye on YouTube for you to catch up.
What's the name of the YouTube channel?
Conversations with Kalekye.
Oh.
Keep it simple.
Okay, but before then, because that's December 22, you did a lot of work, especially during COVID.
Right.
What was that?
So when COVID hit, I'd say we, because it's now as KM Network, right, had just taken off 2019 after I left doing the show Talk Central on K24.
Yeah.
And when I left, one of the key things was like, I need to keep doing conversations or having a show or something. And so that's when all the registration and everything for KM Network came. It's held under a different company.
Okay.
So that's a holding. And then I started Live and Uncut. And so you can imagine, Live and Uncut has started about May of 2019. May, June around of 2019.
Oh.
Then COVID hits, and where I had been working with a full crew, now we are like, so what do we do? And we were
Right.
shooting almost every week.
Yeah.
Right? So suddenly we're stuck. And as you know, that was a very confusing time for
Yeah.
everybody. And so I had just invested in equipment.
Oh.
I already had my podcasting equipment. At that time, nobody was doing these things.
Right.
And so I just invested in it. So I'm looking at my bank account and it's saying, we're kind of empty right now. So that equipment you bought is not making money. So, and I was just getting so frustrated. And I sat there and I looked at this equipment and I said, are you telling me I can't do something even when I'm at home? How's that even possible? We're going to do something. And suddenly, you know, people started getting onto this Instagram Live. It had been there, but it wasn't as prominent
Yes.
prior. And so I did a whole setup, tried to figure out, can I use this equipment and come up with good, clean content.
Yeah.
And I started on April 1st. Everyone thought it was an April Fool's joke. I'm serious, it was April 1st.
What's with you and first?
So I begin the show and I'm there thinking, okay, will I have audience? Will people come? And I say, I'm going to do it for 1 hour. Listen, it doesn't matter. You'll always second guess yourself. You'll always feel that people move on from you. And people do move on. So for me, the blessing is that I can walk into a room and people take me back to the things they knew me for that were way back when. I am so grateful for that because it means that I made an impact and I did change a life.
You did.
Which is what I believe my purpose is.
Yes.
And so guys come on, I do the show for an hour and they're complaining, they're DMing me saying, hey, 1 hour
too
is
short.
too short. Then me, I'm thinking, the way I was sweating that I can finish this thing because I don't even know how we got here, what I'm doing. And that's how KM Radio was born. And so at the time, because there was nothing going on, I think I was like, yeah, let's just do this. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we were doing the show and it was awesome for the whole of that period.
Yeah.
And what amazed me the most is the number of Kenyans living abroad who tune in. To date, it was like bringing people together. People who had grown up listening to me and were missing my voice on radio, and they're like, oh, finally we know where you are. So if you're looking for me, because every other day people ask, uliendanga wapi? Instagram at Kalekye Mumo, nifate uko. And so we did that, finished a year. A lot of people were on Instagram at the beginning.
Yes.
Everybody and their cousin was doing a live. And so they were doing their lives from 8 o'clock. Some of them were really raunchy and dirty and just, and some people come on, huku akutoangu ingo? No, I'm a child of Jesus. Yeah, I use my mouth to connect with my words, please. I'm not removing my clothes. Hey,
For nobody.
for nobody. And so, you know, soon enough, if just going by what that was, the content wasn't holding weight. So it dropped off. And everybody dropped off and went back to their lives. They got tired. But
Post-COVID.
Even not even post-COVID, even just a year on, by 2021, majority of the people plus all the DJs who had begun live shows, everybody died off. And I remember some people asked me, gosh, you really have consistency. You don't get tired? I'm like, but also I love it. Also, I started it and there are people who love it. So then my laziness is going to now, listen, you're called to work like you're working for God.
It's your worship.
So if I'm working for God and he's expecting me to show up,
better show up.
And so what we did change, and that was towards 2022, and when things were beginning to normalize and work was beginning to resurface, there were a couple of shoots here and then things were changing, was that I had to scale it back to once a week. Because even my audience was now getting back to being busy. So now we do it once a week, every Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m.
On your Instagram?
On my Instagram.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what you do now is you take us to break, then we come back.
Hey? That is how you do around here.
No, we don't.
No pressure.
You know, you have to give this opportunity to legends. So use the voice. Use the voice, man. Voiceover artists. There you go.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Make it good.
No warning, no nothing. Anyway, you're watching What's Your Story right here on KTN Home. We'll be right back. And welcome back to What's Your Story right here on KTN Home. My name is Kalekye Mumo, and I'm being hosted by the amazing Catherine Mwangi. Thank you for having me.
Oh, God, that was so good.
Kitu tulifanya,
We'll never erase it. We'll never erase it.
If you don't send it to me.
We'll play it on repeat on all the promos. But it's so good to have you.
Thank you.
So before we went to break, you said, you know, the biggest thing that most people are intrigued about by you is your love, your love life.
Yeah.
People make the assumption that you have never dated, that you are not into, you know, relationships or marriage or whatever, not knowing that you're actually big on that. If they just dared follow you on YouTube. Or
take their time to just understand.
Just watch something. You know, just go to her YouTube channel. Just watch something.
So
and
so much.
Yeah. So when you said to me before that, you know, God has called you into the area of relationships, and it's not just like boy, girl, or man, woman, but just different facets of relationships. What I know with that is you cannot be called into something that you haven't been tested in. And so that's how I know that came about. Yeah. And people should know that just because you discuss that on your channel, it's because you've been through stuff.
Exactly. And I think that's where my story was important to share. My love story was important to share. And it wasn't an easy decision. I said, oh, okay, I'll do this. Then I thought, I'm like, God, you made me say that. Yeah. And now I've said it, it has to be done, because I'm speaking to my producer, and he's like, I wrote it down already. We can't go back. And just being vulnerable enough to share. And the fact that there are different things across the ages that I went through, that you went through, and that there's a lesson in there, that somebody else who was sat in the room or is watching the YouTube channel, a 20-year-old listening to me share how I made silly mistakes in my 20s. I mean, how I considered suicide because of a boy. You know, such stories will make that person go, hiya. And then after that, I don't even know what the boy is doing today. If you ask me where he is, I don't know. Yeah. You know, things like that. And so I think being open and honest about it took a lot. But in retrospect, just by the vibe at the end of the show, the live show, and from the feedback on the channel, a lot of people are like, where was this? The older people, where was this content 20 years ago? Because I'd have made less mistakes. Right. Others are like, oh, so that's how it's supposed to, oh, so I should not. There are people who are actually engaging more, asking questions. And I also feel that element you've brought about, that people assume that I shouldn't talk about relationships. Then how does it explain people constantly writing to me to ask me what they should do in certain instances? I'm not a therapist. I'm not professionally trained. However, my experiences, because there were many, I could be able to say one or two things about what you need to think about, the kind of questions you need to ask. And that's something we also hold strong on KM Radio. We talk about always remembering that dating is data collection. And to the men who are watching, if you are sat there thinking that I should not ask you many questions, then the problem is with you, because you too should be asking questions. It's data collection, so that I know with the data I've collected whether this is worth taking in or not. I mean, I've wanted to get married since I was 25. Okay. When I hit 25 and it wasn't happening, I wasn't dating someone, I had the most miserable birthday. I was so sad and so upset. And why? Because my mother had gotten married at 25. So, you know, these things, you form them from where you were born. Yeah. And the way you first understood love, what you think love should be. Yes. If you're accepting things, go back and check. Yeah. What was it like at home? Yes. Because it informs the way you behave, either from what you saw or what you never want to see because of how bad it was. The two are the same. And so for me, my mother had gotten married at 25. So in my mind, by 25, I should be getting married. And then I wasn't dating anyone, so I was just like upset. Then after that, I was like, you had a bad birthday because what? Yeah. You will never have another bad birthday in your life. And I made it my point to celebrate all my birthdays. So we hit COVID, and, you know, nobody's moving around. The help isn't able to come. Yeah. And suddenly I realized, hey, when's the last time I had to clean my house top to bottom by myself, wash my clothes, cook for myself? Because while I was working those crazy media schedules, I had somebody to come and do that for me. Yeah. And then I said to myself, Kai Kalekye, you know, you're not ready to get married. Hey, Indio Kazi, what? You need to call yourself into several meetings and build the capacity.
That's
and
powerful.
so I actually cognitively chose not to date between that period where it occurred to me,
Yeah.
and that was like mid of 2020.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, have the conversations, and that's why I loved being on KM Radio, because now I was asking even things that bother me, I was bringing them up as topics. And it was good because then I was getting opinions from so many people.
Yeah.
There are married people there. There are people who have been in it for 20 years. There are people who've just gotten in it. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I actually decided,
No.
no. And you see, interestingly enough, I was in my 40s already, okay? By the time I'm making that particular decision, I was 44. So it doesn't matter. These things can occur to you late in life, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine that whole idea of, I want this, I
Yeah.
want this because I want someone to grow old with. But I'm only just beginning to grow old, so we can
praise
still grow old together. If age was the issue, also there are many children who need to be adopted. If I can't have babies, we'll just adopt them.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
And I have
Or
this
he comes with babies. It's okay.
Either way, yeah.
Me,
It
I'm
becomes a
fine.
blended family. It's beautiful. As long as it's the right
The
person.
right person. And that's the thing. I have refused to settle for less.
That's my girl.
I have refused.
Yeah.
Again, watch my love story
Yeah.
on Conversations with Kalekye.
Yeah.
You'll understand where the standard was set. The standard of the type of gentleman I would like in my life was set when I was 19. It's very hard for it to go away.
They like how you're fortified. You're
Yeah.
divinely fortified. And that doesn't mean nothing to you. It's not even
No.
about, I no longer even say age is just a number. I'm like, yeah, you just,
Age is growth and wisdom. I have lived, I have seen. I am thankful that I still have another day to walk this earth. And that's why I keep saying to the women I meet, you know, the guys who ask me, Guy, you're not afraid telling people your age? I'm turning 47.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I have lived, I have seen.
Yeah.
I can come to what's your story and give you a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't take for granted that I have lived. I'm grateful. And if it scares you that I'm older, then okay, next.
It's not
and then
you.
if I'm not for you also,
It ain't going anywhere.
trashing me is not going to help you sleep better
No.
at night. It's not going to pay your rent. It's not going to do anything
I was
for
going
you.
to ask,
So
how do you take that? All the trolling.
the thing is, you choose to ignore. If it doesn't give you power, it doesn't bring favor.
Now you want to finish me on my set. You want me to walk out here and leave you here?
It is God's truth.
Can you say it again?
If it doesn't have power, it doesn't bring favor. Because you see, if you're going to get somebody being negative, like I'll give you an example, I'm not afraid to share it. The other day, some blog had posted something that happened to the women in parliament, and I made a comment, just,
Right.
thinking, hey, I think you should cut this person some slack. And it was a very general comment.
Right.
If you want me to say what it was
Yeah,
about,
please,
it will be
yeah.
easier. We were talking about Karen, is she called Karen?
Karen Nyamo?
Karen Nyamo's
Okay.
situation, yes, where she had worn what they called a sleeveless
Right.
top because it wasn't a spaghetti, it was covering up to here. And I
Yeah.
get it, you were supposed to have a jacket. And I
Yeah.
know she did have a jacket. It was just hot.
Hot. She had just removed it.
It was just hot, man. You guys know it's been hot. And so I come and I said, hey, but you guys, also it's been hot. So just cut her some slack. She
Yeah.
probably just felt hot.
Yeah.
Hey? I mean, I appreciate those who commented and said, hey, but the parliament rules are, I appreciate. I know they are. But when you come and tell me, wewe ulishindwa kuzaa, sasa una comment. So me, I'm like, so I have to give birth before I talk. You, how many have you birthed? You, how many have you birthed? And are you taking care of them? Because it was a guy. So in my head, I thought to myself,
God.
hi, we have gone so far.
My God.
So I chose to just delete because I was like, no,
No.
it doesn't give me power.
So the last 7 years, like, it sounds like it's been such a journey of faith
Yeah.
and trusting, and your relationship with God has just been brighter and brighter. You know that scripture in Proverbs 4:18, brighter and brighter, it gets better and better.
It gets better and better.
You trust more and more.
Yeah.
And you're more sure of yourself. You know who you are
Yeah.
because you know it's His identity in you.
Yeah.
Is that the
That's
case?
been the pace, that's been the journey, and I think in that period, in those 7 years
Yeah.
where I didn't have to do things on the grind in the routine, I was able to make time for God in my life in a way that I had never made time for him before.
Right.
And the beauty about God is it doesn't matter when you decide, his doors are open. He's just waiting for you to choose him. And I chose him.
Yeah.
And so for me, I live my life in Christ. I'm born again. I love the Lord. And that journey, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
It took long. I wish I had thought about it differently earlier, because life in Christ is so sweet, man.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. What do you wish you knew then that you know now?
By then, you're going to have to be specific. Remember, I'm turning 47, man. Then you win. Then you win. Then you win.
Then in your 20s and maybe early 30s.
Okay. So in my 20s, what I wish I knew was that not every guy who's nice to you likes you for you.
Right.
Because I feel like that's a time where I don't know, I'm yet to crack it.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was a time where I had this desire for the love.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because in my mind, the timeline of get married at 25 was so big. So I was listening to people I should not have been listening to.
Right.
30s, I really just went ham on my career.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think I have much to say about that period.
Okay.
Because I enjoyed it. I was living my dream. I dreamt about being inside the radio.
Yes.
Because that time I didn't have concept of what it was, where those people who are talking were.
Yeah.
When I was in Standard 4. I knew I wanted to be like those people talking inside the radio on a show that used to come at 4 o'clock called Beat Time.
Ah.
And it was just amazing. There's music, they're talking, there's stories. Oh, what?
Yeah.
So I knew that then.
40s? Early 40s?
What's there to regret? You know, when you hit 40, that's when you realize, whatever, man.
I thought when I hit 40, like, it would be like, you know,
Wait, hold on. At you are what?
I'm 44 now.
Ah, wait, watch out. You guys remove this chick from the set. She's lying.
Good Lord. So I thought that I would, like, it would be quiet, zen, like, no more drama.
Huh.
Child.
Why did you think? What made you think that?
Because, like, I will no longer be attracting, like, the roughshods. But roughshod, I mean, like, people who don't keep their word, the ghosters,
please.
you know. And I'm
if you were with them when they were 20, you know they've also become 40 like you and they're still there. There are some people who don't grow up. You do
I'm
know
realizing that now.
Not everyone grows up.
This is what I'm learning.
Not everyone agrees that they have aged. And that's how you have people who are in their late 40s, early 50s. They're still in the bar like they used to when we were 20 in campus.
You know, my biggest issue is discovering that older doesn't mean mature.
No, it does not.
I didn't know that.
Okay. And you were learning that in your 40s?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That one I learned in my 30s. Hey, that one I learned.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus. I learned it in my 30s.
It's been the toughest lesson to embody. I'm like, dude, you're 50. Come on.
No, it doesn't. This is the other thing. The lesson is that treat everybody as an individual. Let them show you who they are. Age notwithstanding. There's something about just allowing someone to be who they are and not pegging it to how old are they or where do they come from, where did they grow up and all that stuff. Just allow someone. They are the sum total of their experiences as a child.
Now I know that now. I knew that when I was 43 last year. You know, that's the most vulnerable I can get.
Oh, man.
On that story.
Man.
But you know what I mean? So when I hear you say you love that, I'm like, no, for me, I'm thinking, this 30-year-old something kids. The children are in their 50s.
It's interesting, though, when you say it that way, that
Yeah.
the 30-year-olds are tending to behave a little bit older, but you still have to suss out and just be prepared for anything, because I think people are just that. They're people. I used to love watching a show, House, the series House.
Yes.
And he used to say, everybody lies.
Yeah, that guy.
Just be ready, because
Yes.
everybody lies, Dr. House. And the truth is, is that you can't be oblivious of the fact that people will. You give them the benefit of the doubt until they prove you wrong. When they prove you wrong and it doesn't work within your values, again, you have to know yourself to know your values and what you can and cannot take, what you will and will not accept, what you're willing to live with and will not, which is what any married person will tell you, is they look and they say, this thing, I don't like it, but imagine with this particular person,
I can.
It's okay because there's something else that is giving more life to you, and it maybe it outweighs the little thing that you always had an issue with. So people are people. I treat people as just come, show me who you are,
Vile umekuja.
tutakubeba hivyo. Yeah. Okay, like that.
Thanks. I should have met you maybe at 38. When I was 38.
That time is now. God's timing is perfect. You never know.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. So tell me about your venturing into film.
Right. So I think a lot of people may not know, but I actually was acting earlier
I didn't know
in
that.
my career. Exactly. Because again, I did my job so well on radio that it outshined so many other things.
Everything else, yes.
Yeah. But in terms of being able to even deliver well on radio was because I had been an actor before. I started my first role acting, I was 9. I had a lead role. I was lucky to be in a school where we had James Falkland, the late James Falkland of Phoenix, as our director of most of our school plays. And then I did go to Phoenix.
Yeah. Oh.
And so acting helps with being in front of cameras, in front of everything. So my first role was on the Kenyan film Fundamentals, which was a comedy, dramedy, I'll say dramedy, with a lot of sexual innuendos. Yeah. Which was a scary role for me to play because it was me who needed to be in the innuendo. So at the time, I mean, it's well shot, everything is, it's just obviously it's how it looks at the end. And I remember saying, no, what have I done? Anyway, I did it. Then the second one was on Kenya's first soap opera, Mali, where I had a supporting role. And that was in between me working at KISS. So especially for Mali, because it was very demanding, and soap opera can have 300 and something episodes, which it did. We shot for almost 2 years, from 2011 to 2013.
I think it's the longest running, eh?
Yeah, yet.
Of its genre, yes.
Yet.
Yes.
There are others which are going to catch up, I know. But at the time, it hadn't been done.
Yes.
So the show on radio was getting more intense, and it was getting very busy. And so after I did that, I didn't pick up any other roles. I didn't see how I was going to manage that. I had begun a business on the side, so I was pretty busy.
Yeah.
So I didn't focus much. But then, now interesting is within these years where you had this pandemic putting us down, and you start to say, wait a minute, there were other things I used to do. Why am I feeling like I've dropped off on just being on TV and radio mainstream? What else?
Yeah.
I went back to doing my voiceovers, and now because I have the equipment, I can record from home. So clients sent me whatever they need done, even from the US. I record it, I send it back. We're finished our business, things like that. So then I was like, hey, and then there's this thing, you love to act. So just when I was thinking about it and saying, okay, maybe I should get back into it, I see a casting call for an Mnet original film on Instagram. And I remember it was Saint P who had posted something. He's Saint P. Okay. I said, hey, by the way, Saint, I think I can do this role.
Yeah.
He called me immediately. He said, by the way, you can. I'd forgotten you act. I said, yeah. He said, Aya, record yourself. Da, 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 da. By the next day, I had the role. So that's the movie Life, which is an Mnet original.
Okay.
It dropped on Mnet, I think the first week of December of last year. So that was an intense thing. And the fact that I was able to deliver, I was like, wow, you actually can do this, eh? Okay. So next, where are we casting?
Yeah.
And so then I, started sending out more stuff. So and this has been in a very short period. I'm talking about between November 2022 and now, I've been able to send out casting calls, or rather answer casting calls. And so I landed another role in a film that we're currently in pre-production for, called It's a Free Country by Chatterbox.
Okay.
And we are excited because that script is amazing. It's an amazing script, and I have a lead role in that.
Wow.
And I was cast also for another series. I'm not allowed to talk about it yet.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So we're winding up, and I've just known today. I was 44 years old. I was today's year old. What do people say?
Today's year old.
Yeah. When I learned that Kalekye sings, like she is a singer.
I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know. But I mean, okay. So let me demystify it for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I loved singing from when I was a young girl. I sang in school. I remember being given the role of leading the senior choir in Loreto Convent, Msongari. I was in standard 6. And then I'm thinking, how are these Form 4s listening to me as Ati, I'm the one leading? How? And then, in that process, the enemy, as usual, I started having doubts, and I got afraid, and I said, I can't do it anymore. And I didn't. But I had a dream of, I would love to actually produce and sing music. And it came to happen. I released the first song in 2013 with Yulopa, and it was written by Kolo. That was 2013. Then after that, I did 2 songs with... what did I do them with? Sana wrote the songs and produced those songs with, I'm forgetting his name. That's how far back it is anyway. Moral of the story is that by 2015, I had released more music. Then after that, just because of, unfortunately, how the system works in Kenya, we don't have our music copyright system solid. So it wasn't really making money unless you're able to do shows. Now, I had a full-time job. So I didn't have the time to do shows because if you're not on air, you're on a road show. You're doing, and it wasn't why I wanted to do the music. It wasn't shows was not my thing.
No.
But so I got to do that. Then I did one more song, a collabo with Electric DJs. Now that's the one where I wrote fully by myself. It's called Ngito. It is now the title track for Conversations with Kalekye. And goes a little bit like this. Ngewe su Ngito we. Ningito, gewesu ningito, ningito. Feel the music in your soul, feel it in your vibe. And that's all you're gonna get.
You actually sing?
Yes. And so when I stopped singing for, public, I sang in church. And I sang in church at our main church. For about 2 years. Then we opened a church plant, and my services were needed elsewhere. There was already a good worship team put together, so I said I won't go in that direction. So yeah.
So I want you to look here, which shouldn't be difficult. Like who are we telling?
You're a funny girl.
Shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be that difficult. And speak to people as you're led.
Well, the people of What's Your Story? I think I'd say that allow people to be who they are without judging what you believe you know. Invest some time in getting to know who people are. And it starts by watching shows like this one here. Because then you understand that behind all the facade or all the things that come out as glitz and glam, because somebody is doing their job right, that there's a person who has feelings and who has passions, who gets hurt, and more so is just a child of God like you. Take your time to hear what God is telling you about your life, about your vision, and about your purpose. Find that and never let it go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. How was it?
It was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good conversation.
Yeah.
These are the things I like.
Yeah, me too. Me too. No, women in their 40s, okay, she reached Zen before I did. Like, for me, I'm still like, what? How do you do that?
Your Zen's coming. Your Zen's coming. Have
Amen.
faith.
I received that.
Yeah,
I received that. Yeah. But thank you so much for making the time to come.
Thank you for having me. It's been a fantastic
Yeah?
conversation. I've enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
And I believe that there's somebody who's going to feel that they've received something
Oh,
today.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We pray for this show.
Yeah,
Yeah, and for lives to be changed. So it's not just people talking, like whatever they say, there's people there it's meant for.
That's right.
And those people, like you said before, when you got off radio, and there's some people who moved on,
Yeah.
but also God brought you your people.
That's right.
There will always be.
And there will always be.
Yes.
So don't be afraid.
Exactly.
Your people are going to be there for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Gosh, thank you. We need to say, do you want to say goodbye?
Oh my goodness. Am I being paid? That's all I want to know. I'm doing all her work. No. Sign off. It's your show.
Would you please give a long outro? No. I just want to hear your voice. Like, it's just something so, like...
Are you serious right
no,
now?
for real.
I'm supposed to do the outro.
I actually never have told nobody to do it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Now how do I go out on my own story at Awewe? So,
That's the thing. Behold, it's a new day.
okay. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on What's Your Story right here on KTN Home. It's been a fantastic time being hosted by the amazing Catherine Mwangi, and I thank you all for tuning in. I pray that you are blessed where you are and that you will tune in again next week. Good night.
Gem Suites Hotel and Luxury Service Departments currently boasts 2 properties within Kenya. Gem Suites State House Crescent, set in the exclusive State House neighborhood, comprises of 34 well-appointed apartments, and Gem Suites Riverside, set up in a secure, private and tranquil setting. In the upscale Riverside neighborhood with 98 luxuriously appointed full-service 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, superior hotel rooms and presidential penthouses.